Hi everyone, γεια σας και καλώς ήρθατε to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today we're making Melitzanopita Strifti, which is basically eggplant spirals. Savory eggplant, feta, roasted red peppers, wrapped in a buttery, flaky, crispy phyllo. They're so good. They're the perfect appetizer for your holiday table if you're thinking about something nice and different to make for Easter or for a spring gathering. This is it. Let's get started. So when you're picking eggplant, make sure that they're nice and shiny, that the skin is nice and shiny, and they're also firm. You don't want them to be soft or hard. So we're going to start off with the eggplants. I have 3 eggplants here, and you could either pierce them all around so that way they don't explode in the oven, or cut them in half and roast them that way. I'm going to drizzle them with a little bit of olive oil and season with some salt. And just olive oil on the back side so they can get nice and smoky. And these are going to bake in a preheated 500-degree oven until they're nice and soft and tender. It can take up to 30 minutes. Check them at the 20-25 minute mark. Okay, while the eggplants are roasting, we're going to get the rest of the filling ingredients ready. So we're going to finely chop an onion. And I'm going to add about 3-4 tablespoons of olive oil with a little pinch of salt. And I'm going to cook this over medium heat until the onions are nice and soft and golden. Should take about 8 or 10 minutes. While the onions are cooking, I washed the scallions really well. I have 6 scallions here that I'm just going to thinly slice all the way down to the white parts. There's a lot of flavor in this filling. I have a handful of fresh parsley that's been washed and dried. I'm just going to really finely chop that. And then I have a sprig of rosemary here. I'm just going to pull all of the leaves off. If you don't have rosemary, or if you prefer dill or basil or just some more parsley, even mint will work with this. You can use your favorite herb. Just finely chop that. The woodsy aroma and flavor of rosemary goes so well with eggplant. And now we wait for the onions to cook. Once the onions are nice and soft and golden, go ahead and add the scallions and cook them through for about 2-3 minutes until they also have softened. Then I have 2 cloves of garlic that I've grated. This garlic is actually frozen because I do this in big batches where I grate in the food processor lots of garlic cloves, and then I put them in a thin layer in Ziploc bags and I freeze them, just break off chunks as I need it. Just warm it through until it's fragrant. That just takes a few seconds. You don't want to ever overcook garlic because it burns quickly. Oh, that smells so good. Then go ahead and take it off of the heat. And then we're going to need 2 or 3 roasted red peppers. I like to use them straight out of the jar. If they're small, use 3. If they're large, then you can just use 2, or however many your heart desires. These add really nice smoky sweetness to the dish. And at this point, you can also add the herbs that are finely chopped. If you clean as you go, it makes life so much easier in the end. Okay, mix that all up. I am going to season it with a little bit of black pepper. And we'll add the cheeses and the remaining ingredients once the eggplant is ready. It's still baking in the oven, so we wait. Okay, so the eggplant took almost 30 minutes to roast. And when you put a knife through it or even a fork, it should be super tender. That's how you know it's ready. Technically, it does need to cool, but I'm going to flip it over and get it going. Actually, let's see. Actually, I'm going to put this back in the oven because I think it needs about 5 more minutes. You really want them to be super tender. The back side is very tender, but I think the cut side should also get a little softer and maybe a little more color. So I'll put it back in there, maybe under the broiler this time for about 5 minutes, and then I'll take it out. Now they have really good color and they're also really soft. The best thing is to let them cool a little bit, but I'm kind of short on time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut these little tips off that are hard And I'm gonna flip the eggplant upside down and kind of scrape the skin off. It should come off easily. You don't want any skin in the Melitzanopita because it's a little bitter and it's also tough. The skin might easily peel off, so try that. Otherwise, you can use your knife to help you. And then you can just gather them all together and roughly chop them. I also like to season them at this point, especially while they're nice and warm still. It's just gonna absorb all that salt. I'm gonna put a little pinch of crushed red pepper flakes on them for heat. If you don't like it, you could leave them out. But you know what? They're really hardly spicy. Some black pepper. And I'm just gonna add the eggplant to the rest of the mixture. Mix it up. I have half a pound of feta cheese. Just crumble that in. Always buy blocked feta and crumble it in yourself. We've spoken about this so many times. It's higher quality, less briny, more delicious. Don't buy the crumbled feta. And then I have about half a pound of, this is kefalograviera. It's a Greek Gruyere type cheese. It's really sharp and nutty and delicious. You can use Parmesan, you can use white cheddar. You can just leave it out altogether and use just feta cheese. It's up to you. I should have used the bigger bowl, but why dirty one more thing, right? We will make this work. Now, if you're keeping this vegetarian or vegan, you can totally leave out the cheese and just make it just like this with the eggplant and the veggies. You could even throw some more veggies in here if you like mushrooms. Mushrooms would be really nice, maybe some toasted pine nuts or even pumpkin seeds. Toasted pumpkin seeds are not traditional, but they would add really nice crunch. You could add more roasted red pepper to this. Totally up to you. I'm keeping the cheese in here because I like to add cheese to whatever I can. Okay, I'm gonna give this a taste. I could eat it just as is, like a salad. So delicious. Okay, doesn't need any more salt. I have half a cup of breadcrumbs. You can use couscous if you like, which is the little baby pasta. Trachana, sour trachana, which is a Greek pasta, would be good in here too. It's just gonna help dry out the filling just a little bit. And then 2 eggs. Again, if you're keeping it vegan, leave the eggs out. The filling will be good. This just helps the filling hold together a little bit better, but you can leave the eggs out. And I'm just gonna beat them over here in the corner. See how lazy I am when it comes to washing things? I usually have so many things to wash, so where I can cut corners, I do. Okay, that looks good enough, and I'm just gonna mix this one more time. Just taste the filling before you add the egg, right? Because once you add the egg, you know, I don't know how you feel about eating raw egg. I'm not the hugest fan. I'll taste it if it's in a buttercream or something, but for some reason, if it's in something savory like this, I'll pass. I'm not a fan of eating raw egg. Up to you. Okay, and that's it. The filling is ready. I'm gonna clean up and then we're gonna put the whole thing together. Okay, so now it's time to put it all together. Over here, I melted 2 sticks or half a pound of salted butter. You can use unsalted butter and then put maybe 1/4 teaspoon of salt in there. It's up to you. Then I like to use country style phyllo, which is thick cut phyllo. Traditionally, this is made with homemade phyllo, and you can use my phyllo recipe that I've made spanakopita with. It's just gonna be so delicious with that. But country style phyllo, which is usually number 10 in the grocery stores, will also work. You'll just need 1 sheet for each spiral. So this is a pack that I've used to make my samousades, which are my sesame seed baklava rolls. Those are so good if you haven't made them yet. Definitely give that recipe a try. I had some left over and I refrigerated them the other day, so now I'm gonna finish these up before I open the other pack that I have waiting over here. Okay, so I'm gonna work with 1 sheet at a time, and I also have 2 trays that are lined with parchment paper ready. My oven is preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. The thing about using phyllo that's already been opened, it tends to crack faster. You know, it's been exposed to air, so keep that in mind, but it should be okay. Drizzle some butter over the top of the sheet, and then you're going to take about 1/2 cup of filling and put it on the bottom 1/3 of the phyllo. Just spread it in a thin layer so that way you have less breakage of the phyllo. That looks good. And then you're going to carefully roll it up. And then you just roll it in to like a little spiral or a coil. And don't worry about the areas that crack open like that. You can fix it later by putting a little strip of phyllo on the corner of it, or you can just leave it and it'll bake up just perfectly. That part will actually caramelize a little bit in the oven. So I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to drizzle butter on each layer of phyllo. Concentrate on the top part because that's going to help it seal. The bottom part is already going to have some oil from the filling. So I'm going to keep doing this until all of the filling runs out. So I opened up the new pack of phyllo for the final few, and it just rolls up so much easier. So when you're using fresh phyllo and you thaw it out properly, you leave it overnight in the refrigerator and then about an hour at room temperature, it's going to be really nice and soft and pliable. When you're reusing leftover phyllo, it just has it just tends to break more easily because it's already dried up a little bit because it's been exposed to air. But look at how easily this rolls up. And just a small crack over here on the side. I really don't mind the crack. I can take a little bit of this phyllo that's at the end and just, patch it up like that. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to put it on the baking tray. Now, before I move on, I'm going to roll this up as soon as possible so that way I can reuse it without it drying up. I'm going to wrap it in plastic in just a little bit. I'm just going to finish these up. Let me wrap this in a towel just to keep it nice and moist. So this amount of filling made 10 spirals. I did add a little bit of olive oil to the melted butter because I felt like it was running low. Make sure to brush them very generously with the butter mixture, butter-olive oil mixture. You can start off with half butter, half olive oil, to be honest. It's up to you. It's just that I find that butter has so much more flavor when you're baking with it. Another option is to put some sesame seeds on top. I love the contrast of the black over the white, so I use black sesame seeds. But you could use white sesame seeds or leave the sesame seeds off completely. And that's it. There you have it. They are ready for the oven. Once you form the spirals, then you could do two things. You could either bake them straight away if you're serving them the same day. You would bake them in a preheated 400-degree oven, 400 degrees Fahrenheit. On the center rack, if you have two trays, you can rotate the trays halfway through cooking. Basically, you're going to bake them until they're nice and golden all around. So that can take up to 45 minutes. Keep an eye on them because oven temperatures do vary. You can also freeze these. So these are great if you want to make them ahead of time. You just put them in the freezer until they're frozen solid and firm. Then you could wrap the trays in plastic wrap and then in aluminum foil so that way they don't absorb any freezer odors. Or once they're firm, you could transfer them to freezer safe bags. It's up to you. And then when it's time to bake them, you just put them on a baking tray just the way they are and you bake them in a preheated oven. I would start at 350 degrees and then bake them for about an hour, again, until they're nice and golden. You could raise the temperature the last 15 minutes so they can get beautifully crispy, but start off at the 350 just so that way they can cook all the way through. Keep an eye on them. Once they're golden, they're ready. As soon as they come out of the oven, let them rest for like 10 minutes so the filling can settle and so it's not scorching hot. They should be crispy and delicious, just like these are. It is time for the taste test, and I would serve these with a nice green salad if you're serving them as a main course and some tzatziki on the side, but these do make a wonderful appetizer. Do you hear that crispiness? You should hear that. The phyllo should be nice and crisp. Okay, time for the taste test. So good. I think even the people that don't like eggplant, if you don't tell them, first of all, they won't even know that it's in there. The filling is silky. When you cook eggplant properly, it should be really nice and silky. That's how it is on the inside. Then you have the creamy feta and then the cheese, the roasted red peppers. The whole thing is so delicious. Best part about it, as always, is that flaky, crispy phyllo. You guys are going to absolutely love this one. If you want to get the exact measurements, they're on the website, dimitrasdishes.com. If you want to learn how to make more delicious phyllo savory pies, click over here and I will see you right over there. Yes, Des?